Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm joined by my co-host, Emmett. Today we got a fun NFL football related show for you. It's been a while since we've done a predominantly football show, so we figured it's time. We'll start out recapping all of the Spartans and former Spartans that were signed to NFL teams or drafted to NFL teams this weekend, as the NFL draft just ended a couple hours ago. And then later in the episode, we'll be joined by a guest to break down some Spartan football recruiting, portal targets, where we're standing football-wise after spring practice. So a lot of football talk in store for you today. Zach unfortunately couldn't make it with us, so you just have Emmett and I holding it down, but we're happy to talk football. So Emmett, welcome. Thanks for joining me. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good. It's one of my favorite times of the year with you have spring practice wrapping up, you have a little bit of portal action, so you get to add a couple of those players who you really think could make that big impact. We had quite a few impact players join the team last year during the spring cycle. So overall, that's one of the more fun times. And then you also have the NFL draft. These players who've been doing these spring practices the last 3-4 seasons get to have it all pay off in the NFL draft. Obviously, today the Spartans added one player to their draft history, in addition to having quite a few undrafted free agents. Just a heads up, we are recording this at about 8:30, so there may be more players signed later throughout Saturday night.
Hopefully.
But right now, we only have a couple players who have officially reached their next destination in the NFL.
Yeah. Couple of Spartans from last year, a couple of former Spartans that had left, but have been signed as well. So I guess let's dive right into that aspect. We'll start with the Spartans that were on last year's roster. The sole draftee, we kind of figured he was the one who had the best chance of getting drafted. Offensive lineman Luke Newman is heading to the Windy City to hopefully land a spot on that much revamped Chicago Bears offensive line with new head coach Ben Johnson. He was drafted by the Bears. Luke was drafted number 195 by the Bears, and like I said, they've been trying to overhaul that offensive line, so hopefully that's a good start, and Luke will have a spot to earn there, because it's been a deficiency of the Bears in the past. So, Emmett, just some quick thoughts about Luke going to Chicago.
Obviously, especially seeing now that I'm writing with the Lions on Sports Illustrated, a little bit devastating, especially the pick before the Lions were up. However, they had already taken 2 interior offensive linemen. So I kind of figured my dream of Luke Newman to Detroit was just that, a dream. However, I do think that Luke will be able to earn a spot, for sure on the roster, but also I do think he can grind for playing time. Maybe, I don't know about this year, just because they had a trade and a free agent addition. Both guard spots seem secured right now, but if I'm not mistaken, one of them, Joe Tooney, can play tackle, and I believe he's not exactly the youngest player in the room. So I do think he can earn his way to playing time eventually. Hopefully it's not, well, I would say hopefully it's very fast just for Luke's sake, but hopefully it's not one of those situations where the player gets rushed in. But yeah, this was now 4 drafts in a row where the Spartans have had a player pick. Obviously that is now 80, I want to say 84 of the last 85 and 87 of the 91 Common Era drafts, if I'm not Common Era, but 87 of the 91 total drafts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I had that streak going on forever. That was snapped and then started a new one. So the other 2 players from last year's team that did get signed as undrafted free agents, we'll hit both of them really quickly. Joining Luke in Chicago is kicker extraordinaire Jonathan Kim. He will be also heading to the Windy City, another position of need for the Bears. So hopefully he will be able to compete for the starting place kicker job. And then
yeah, he'll be competing with Cairo Santos, I believe. So
yeah,
that Santos, I do not have his field goal percentage on hand, but
he wasn't as stellar last year as he was in previous years, if I remember correctly. Still a good kicker, obviously.
84%, and he has been a 5-year starter for the Bears, so Jonathan Kim does have it laid out in front of him. It is going to be, but his 84% is a dip from his previous 4 seasons in Chicago, so there is an opportunity for the the power-legged kicker out of.
I was going to say, I would assume he'd have the longer leg. I know Santos has been pretty solid over his NFL career, but Jonathan Kim has a huge leg, so that could be a plus for the Bears. So the other undrafted signee, Nate Carter, finds a landing spot in Atlanta. So happy for Nate. He will have a chance to maybe work for some time in sharing the backfield under the Michael Penix-led Atlanta Falcons offense. Like I said, good for Nate. He was one of the ones that would have been that borderline, maybe 7th round draft, potentially able to be picked, but felt more common that a team would pick him up as an undrafted free agent, and that's what Atlanta did in this case.
Yeah, for sure. His backfield, if I'm not mistaken, right now you have both Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier in there, so it's going to be an uphill battle for him to obviously receive the start and let alone receive playing time. However, Nate is one of those players who we saw it a couple years ago with Ben Van Sumeren, the linebacker who now plays for the Eagles. Got a Super Bowl ring with them. His athleticism on Pro Day really stood out. That's also part of what propelled Luke Newman into the draft conversation, is the athleticism on top of good tape. And as a result, he will have a chance to compete down in Atlanta. And if it doesn't work out in Atlanta, I'm sure there will be at least 1, 2, 3 other teams who want to test him out and see what all Nate can retain. I believe he's a very smart player in terms of football, and he's a hard worker. I definitely believe that Nate can carve a role in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to hit on the former Spartans that have signed so far, I'll throw the 3 of them out there and we can get some reaction. Former Spartan wide receiver, well-known, one-game standout for sure, but as a freshman, Ricky White, he landed in Seattle as an undrafted free agent, or no, as drafted. Thank you. He was selected by the Seahawks in the draft out of UNLV. So congrats to him. A former Spartan, Derek Harmon. Obviously, we knew he was going to be drafted. He was drafted in the first round Thursday night by the Steelers. And then Peyton Thorne, undrafted free agent, but did sign with the Bengals. So Emmett, thoughts really quickly on those 3 guys getting their shots.
Ricky White, it's kind of funny. I remember when White first came to MSU, when he set that single game receiving yardage record for a true freshman. He was wearing the 7, and it was like Cody White never left because Cody White wore 7. Ironically, now he goes to Seattle, a spot where Cody White had carved playing time through during when he went undrafted in the league and to the league before Ricky White came to MSU. So it's kind of funny to see the parallels in their career there. However, Ricky White was able to get drafted. Definite special teams contributor for him for sure. He had 4 blocked punts this year, if I'm not mistaken. Absolute insane statistic. I believe White will make the roster, at least as a special teams contributor. I think he could potentially carve out that Pro Bowl role of being a special teamer, if not just for his receiving upside, because I believe White is a tremendously talented player. Just look at his statistics and his box score watch, and you will see a phenomenal player on paper. In terms of Derek Harmon, this was widely expected that he would be taken in the 20 to 30 range. Ended up being on that high end of it at 21. Thankfully, he was able to pass on to his mother that he was drafted by the Steelers before she unfortunately passed away. Our thoughts and prayers are with Derek and his family right now. Obviously, unimaginable situation for that entire family. I'm glad that he was drafted early enough that he was able to make it to the hospital and pass the news on to his mother. Obviously, a little bit more of a somber note. And then Peyton Thorne I think he might be a little bit more of just a camp arm. He does have rushing upside, but I do not know how much that will translate to the NFL with questions about decision making.
Well, especially Cincinnati's got a pretty established quarterback room. Joe Burrow obviously being the starter, unquestionably so. But with the way the NFL's ran nowadays, most teams want to keep 3, and you can have an emergency quarterback. So who knows if he has a good camp or can show some improved decision making and his mobility. So I guess you never know.
Last year, if I'm not mistaken,
he might have. Yeah, he might have had a shot there for a little bit. But congrats to all of them. Obviously, again, I want to echo terrible news about Derek Harmon's mom. But it was good, a little bit of solace knowing that he was able to get up there and pass on the good news before she did pass. And then the whole family was solid. We missed them at MSU, and Derek obviously was a tremendous player here and at Oregon last year. So But congrats to the 6 Spartans and former Spartans. Like I said, it's still a little early in undrafted free agency signings, so there could be more to come. Some Spartans from last year's team, plus transfer portal candidates that have left, former Spartans. We'll update you as much as we can. Of course, follow the socials. You'll see Emmett or I tweeting what we see out. Plus, we'll try to make sure anything hits the podcast Twitter as well. So make sure to follow that. But so that's all we have for Spartans in the draft. We'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll be joined by On3 football recruiting analyst and expert and returning guest of the pod, Kenny Jordan. He's going to be here joining us to talk portal news and recruiting and kind of give us a summary of where we're sitting post-spring practice and with MSU football. So we're excited to have Kenny on. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're joined here with our guest for this evening, Kenny Jordan of On3. We're going to talk some spring football, some roster news, some portal news, and kind of go over the latest in MSU football and where we're at post-spring practice. So, Kenny, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Excited to talk some spring football. We're finally getting through spring camp and unfortunately getting into the dog days of summer before football season starts. A lot of portal news, and Emmett, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit with some of your portal stuff. You want to go ahead and lead us off with some questions for Kenny?
Okay, so I'll start with just simple. What are some targets you think the Spartans are still going to be, not in terms of specific names, but just positions, depth pieces, etc., that you think the Spartans are going to be going after in this spring portal cycle?
Defensive end, rush end, obviously. Tight end, preferably, probably, blocking, more of a blocking tight end, big body guy. Safety, DB in general, You can never have too many DBs, I don't think, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably about it. Yeah, I guess that's all I'd say for right now. I haven't heard anything else, but
do you think that? So you think they're not done with the kid from Hope? Isaac Smith of Texas Tech?
Is it? Yeah, Isaac Smith. Yeah, edge. Yeah, I think that they'll, if there's one available, I think they'll go after another one. The kid Jack, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, but that's kind of why I said, the kid from Hope.
Yeah, he's a walk-on, so he's not a full scholarship. I don't know if it's like I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's not full scholarship. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they got another one more rush end as well on top.
Chris, do you have any questions right now?
I'll try to pronounce his last name. Kusa. We're going to go with that. Is who they were talking about. He was a D3 freshman All-American. For those who were wondering who Emmett and Kenny were just talking about there, he committed the other day. Edge was obviously, I was thinking, one of the biggest identifiers of what we need. Going back to last season, though, the secondary, which you kind of touched on, was a position of need. And then depth along the offensive line, I thought, was one of our bigger problems. How do you feel that the offensive line's been addressed through this kind of incoming freshman class plus the portal and who's left and coming in?
Yeah, I think that they did a really good job. Connor Moore, Luka, I don't know how to say his Vincic. Yeah, him, and then
Matt Golban.
Yeah, Matt Golban, and then Chase something, right? Chase Carter is his name?
Chase Carter.
Maybe, I don't know. The kid from the Coastal Carolina, maybe, or Western Carolina. Yeah. So yeah, those were the 4 they brought in. I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like Connor Moore is kind of the guy, I feel like, and Golban too, playing center a lot. It's where I would expect him to play. And then I'm not sure the other two. What was that?
It was Caleb Carter, not Chase. Chase was the defensive end who also hit the ball.
Yeah. No
relation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure I would assume that Connor Moore is going to be the right tackle, and then Golban at center. And I'm not sure about the other two as far as starting spots, but I'm sure both will play. Probably guard, left, right guard, whatever.
Yeah. So with Connor too, I was thinking he'd probably slide out to right tackle or start there. Do you anticipate a big transition from, coming over from the Montana State to a Big Ten type, or do you think he will get it fairly quickly?
I think he'll be fine. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think honestly the bigger transition more so is flipping from left tackle to right tackle. I'm sure that, not a difficult, obviously I have no idea quite what that transition's like, but it's got to be difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Switching everything, being backwards, that would be my biggest thing. With the recent visits, it sounds like, I mean, you don't necessarily have to break any news or anything there, but would you anticipate getting a couple more, I know you said defensive backs, maybe sounds like we might potentially be on commit watch in a few days, hopefully with one?
Yeah. I don't have like any inside information on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I know he visited. I wouldn't be surprised if he liked it. I'm not sure what his other offers are. I was gonna go look right now. If he had any other, or if he had posted anything else about other schools after
I haven't
him.
heard a lot, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a kid I would definitely keep an eye on. I feel like that's kind of close to home, Bowling Green. I don't know where that kid grew up, but yeah, I would definitely keep an eye out on that one. I can't see him adding, maybe just I would think that they might just add him. So we'll see. What's that?
As far as the 2026 class goes, what would you say? Right now, we have all offensive commits, if I'm not mistaken. What would you say the biggest need is for that, for the future, at least for 2026? Oh, I was saying, as far as the 2026 class goes, for example, right now I believe we have all offensive commits. What would you say the biggest remaining need is? Obviously, with a class of 4 or 5 people, you still have a lot of ways to go.
Right. Yeah, I think defensive line too, but I think linebackers big just because that's the actual position that Rossi coaches. So for him to get his guy, so to say, I think that would be a big deal. And yeah, I mean the safety too. I think there's a couple guys that I like that they're after that I think if they could get them to even consider MSU, it would be a big help, I guess.
We recently saw two freshman redshirt wide receivers hit the portal. Is there any concern there just because now all of a sudden you don't have as much depth? You're right at the same numbers game you were at last season, which obviously heading into the season, you think you're pretty good at it. And then the rash of injuries all struck, and we had a walk-on play half the game against Boston College.
Yeah, I actually just I rewatched that game a few days ago.
Why? I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
Yeah, I get bored. I watch him a lot. I feel like
I watched that for Donovan Ezra for film on him, and I watched that game, and that was not fun to watch because it was Ramil in his first start.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean I think they have a lot more depth this year. I know they lost a couple of those guys, but at the same time too, I think a lot of the guys are a little bit more reliable as well. I mean, obviously injuries can happen anytime, but you got some older veteran guys, I feel like, that are going to kind of lead that room. Yeah, I mean,
and with those, 4 transfer receivers, and then also Nick Marsh. Who are you naming? Obviously, way too early. We haven't had summer camp happen. Who are you naming as your starting 3 for next year?
Nick Marsh.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Nick Marsh probably starts.
Nick Marsh probably Omari Kelly, I would assume, and then probably McCray.
Let's say McCray in the slot.
Yeah, probably McCray.
I think Evan Boyd's
good too. I think I've heard some good things about him too. So I don't know who's the other one again? The other transfer, I can't remember.
Boyd and Boyd are the 2 depths right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Bullard. Yeah, I think Bullard's even good. He's small. He's pretty small too.
Yeah, what's good with me with the speed as well.
Yeah, I like Evan Boyd from what I've seen from him so far this spring, and it's not just because he's a central transfer, Emmett, so don't even say that. But he's a little bit bigger than a lot of the receivers we've been running out, at least the last little bit, so he can hopefully take advantage of some size, I'm hoping, because it seems like we've been missing a big body receiver outside of Marsh. But sticking to receiver, do you see them adding or trying to maybe go after any more for 2026, or do you think that's going to maybe turn more of a focus to defense? I don't know how much your receiver. Yeah.
Yeah. I think though there's a few guys. I think Zach Washington's the first name I can think of.
Okay.
He's
He
the one who was
actually
high school teammates with
Alessio.
Alessio Milivojevic,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
And Alessio's little brother plays at the same school, obviously now too with that kid. But he
Cool.
actually has a few like Mac offers. I'm pretty sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But
Dario, yeah.
yeah. Let me look real quick. Hold on. Yeah, there's definitely Hawkins has a few good options. I feel like.
I think a couple of setup visits, if I'm not mistaken. I think one of them was a Wisconsin commit early, but I don't know if that's, commit.
Tishawn Bardo. I think he's pretty committed to Wisconsin at least right now.
Yeah, and then the kid from Florida that I can't think of, Stinson, maybe, but that's good.
They just had I don't know how to say his name, Salisa Moa. He
He
took an official visit a few weeks ago. Yeah, then they had those offensive linemen. The one just committed, or he posted his top 5 or whatever. Kelvin Obat.
I'm sad we didn't make the crack for him.
Elijah West from Florida. But yeah, I actually think that I think Zach Washington is kind of the guy, their big guy they're kind of going after, just in terms of trying to get him.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I like Hawkins always does a good job, I feel like, too, with recruiting. So
yeah, I feel like of our entire coaching staff so far, I feel like I trust Coach Hawk a lot with his receivers and prototypes because they seem to translate well always.
How much of an impact do you think someone like one of the incoming freshmen, Bryson Williams, will make as a freshman? With obviously an offensive weapon, you had both of the running backs and receivers coaches talking about him on signing day. How much of an impact do you think he makes, at least year one, for Bryson Williams?
I think I'm not sure if he'll really play a whole lot, just because he is coming in late, but that doesn't necessarily mean he won't play. Yeah, I mean, you got Jace, Clarizio, and Zion just in front of him in the running back room, and then Collier and Taplin. Taplin, too, I've heard a lot of really good things about. So, yeah, I'm not sure Bryson will play a whole lot, but he might get out there on special teams or something like that and make some plays, but that's what I would expect at least.
How many players do you see necessarily
He's also
redshirting versus... what's up?
I was just saying he's really young. He just turned 17, so.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he actually skipped a grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
How many players do you necessarily see redshirting from like this incoming class in general? Do you think we're going to see a majority redshirt and not a ton of playing time? I know last year it kind of seemed almost split down the middle.
Right. Yeah, I would, it all, depends. Hopefully, you want as many of them to redshirt because that,
get that extra year, yeah.
Right, and it, means you get, your older guys are producing and staying healthy and playing. I mean, I would obviously expect Leo to redshirt. Probably
the line.
Probably the offensive line. I know Drew Nichols isn't on campus yet, but is Justin Bell the only other offensive lineman?
And then they have Rashawn Rogers, the walk-on, and Antonio Johnson from OSM.
I mean, honestly, I think Antonio would probably have the best chance to play out of that group, though. But I wouldn't expect him to really play a whole lot either.
So he might get that Rakeem Johnson, play your 4 games, but that's about it.
Right. Trying to think, guys.
Derek Simmons, defensive tackle.
I could see him playing a lot. Aiden West, I would have said that too, but he probably
injury.
Probably won't be back until August, I think, or something like that. So
yeah, I believe he said he's missing. Johnson Smith said in his press conference he's missing the first few weeks of summer camp.
Right. So.
Then there's that safety from Texas. Then also George Mullins, a defensive back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not. I think that's another one too. Jace. I think Jace will be. I don't think he'll redshirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he'll be the starting running back, but he'll. I think he'll find his way on the field.
Then how do you feel about Zion?
I actually think he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But
late riser,
I think he.
What I heard.
What was that?
I heard a late riser when they were talking about him. Right. And that he was a player that had been on MSU's radar, but because of injury, they were holding back to see how he looked after an arm injury his senior year of high school.
Yeah. I like him a lot too, and so yeah, I could see him probably redshirting this year, but
Yeah, just
then you got those
I see the logistics of playing five running backs and not having at least one red shirt.
right.
Especially when you also have someone, if you needed a special teamer, you have Chris Williams, you have Jackson McCaig on roster right now, and you have Darren Jones as well. So you could split your redshirt time between August and Jones to prevent them from burning them.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Of the, I guess, kind of projecting out a little bit, between this cycle, you have Leo Hannon that you mentioned, who's probably going to redshirt. This upcoming cycle with Cade Kaufman in the quarterback position, what do you think the future necessarily looks like? I mean, ideally, Aiden's going to be around a little bit longer, but how do you feel like that's shaping up for the future? I know Leo, Servite kid, California, pretty highly regarded. Cade Kaufman's been shooting up boards this cycle. Where do you think, I mean, are they...
Yeah, Milovojevic in good praise too during during the coach interviews too.
Yep, and then Rylan Jesse too. So I mean, where do you think how that's kind of shaping out? I guess who do you maybe see as the projected most likely to take over out of all those, or how are you feeling for quarterback in the future?
Yeah, I think obviously it would change a lot if like Aiden had like a monster year this year and then just went pro or whatever. But if he's here the next 2 years, I would probably I'm not sure. It'd probably be a three-person race there between the Alessio, Rylan, and then probably Leo. I'm not sure Cade would. He might, but I would pick those three. But yeah, I think I actually was saying this just the other day too. I think Leo is one of the most like body-wise, like ready quarterback that I've seen at Michigan State, like as a freshman. Like he looks thick.
Yeah. He is built like a fullback. When I saw him for his first practice, I was like, that guy looks like a fullback. He doesn't look like a quarterback.
Right, just with a cannon of an arm. So yeah, I mean, I think Alessio's improved a lot. I don't really know a whole lot about Rylan, but yeah, it would be one of those three. It would be my guess. And then my guess would probably be Alessio, just because we've seen the most of him so far. I also think that Leo could probably win that job too.
Yeah, Leo kind of gives me a little bit of, I don't know, maybe it's just because they're both California kids, but how Caton Hauser kind of came on, and you can see some similarity. I think Leo personally has a better arm, or like a stronger arm, I should say, but like, yeah, he's built. He's impressive.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. We won't get it. Yeah.
But,
just about Caton Hauser, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But go ahead, Emmett. It looked like you had one.
Oh, I was going to say, in your opinion, what would make both, like, for the future of recruiting, what do you think would make both a successful spring portal for MSU? So, obviously, like, you're taking how many defensive backs, how many edges, and then are you adding blocking tight end you mentioned earlier. And then what would make it successful, would you say, 2026? Is there a certain amount of 4 stars you want, 3 stars?
2026 recruiting high school?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think they're off to a pretty good start. I think they need to land, you need to land more than, Derek Simmons, I think, ended up, at least on the On3 industry thing or whatever, I think he ended up a 4-star, but I think he was the only one that was, across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah,
then right now,
I think you gotta land at least 5. This is the Big Ten. I know that's not the only way, and stuff like that. It's not the only way you can get talent. Obviously, the portal. Yeah, like some of those like elite or above average players, even you got to marginalize, some of those top teams and how much, the talent they've been getting. I feel.
Do you think part of that comes from back losing seasons? Is that part of the reason MSU is so far behind, plus replacing their coach?
Right.
Do you think 2026 will finally be the year where we have a solid coaching staff in place and we won't be as punished as we were, say, last cycle in terms of playing from behind. Do you think 2026 will really be recovered, or would
Yeah, I mean,
2027 be the better?
Yeah, they have a better chance in 2026 as well than they did in 2025 because they were a little late building a lot of those relationships or whatever. Yeah, I think the only other thing too, like with some of the, like Smith and I think some of his staff, I don't want to like call anybody out or anything like that, but I feel like when they get like no for an answer, it's just kind of like, okay, like they move on quick. Like they'll go find another guy, which is a good thing, to have that backup plan. But I feel like they give up on some of those elite guys, like the top. Like I remember last year with Caden Strayhorn saying something about that, and I've heard that a few different times, a couple different kids with similar type things. So yeah, I think that they kind of, which is, I can see both ways. Like I can see how that's a good thing and see how that's not always necessarily a good thing either. But
yeah, and then I would say you could see them also the one time they really, I would say, stood up and fought for the kid would be Jace Clarizio, and now he's in East Lansing right now. So
right.
I definitely see, if you fight for that kid and make it work, it will.
Well, especially in today's recruiting, I mean, even if you're verbally committed or hard committed somewhere, that can flip within a day anymore. So
yeah.
So I get that too, and it's. Do you think some of that comes from not being fully established yet and like building these new relations, or maybe they're just not totally comfortable in this setting quite yet and who they're going after, and feeling like they have to catch up? Like maybe now that they've had a full cycle and are more confident in their approach and everything, you could see them maybe sticking in and fighting out more, or is it just kind of just how they're built, you think?
No, I think obviously, depends on like the relationship, but like, I do think the one person, I don't know if they'll like come around to that, because I think most of the other coaches have like a little bit, that came with him from Oregon State, but Mihalzak, Coach, I just think that I shouldn't even say he thinks, because like, I believe that he believes in himself so much as like a coach that like he can take anybody, not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but yeah, he can go get a guy from, that is the 1,900th ranked recruit and turn him into like a good player, type whatever. So I think that he kind of is just like, if somebody was just, tried to BS him like that, he's just kind of like, okay, I'm moving
he's
on.
got the resume because he's put so many
Yeah, around
in the league. So yeah.
Moving on to players who have left the program, are there any of the names that have entered the portal recently for Michigan State? Are there any names that really, would you say, alarm you in terms of there is a lot to replace, or is it mostly just the normal roster attrition you see, especially with that 105 coming into place, which is why you saw a decent amount of walk-ons, for example?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I feel like the one everybody kind of freaked out about was Tatum. And yeah, that one, I get it. Like, I get why he did it. He is having a hard time staying healthy. I think people kind of forget that too. Just because the team, hasn't been great the last few years. So it's like, I don't know, I just feel like people don't realize like how little he really has done. I mean, I know he played most of that 2023 season, but it's pretty much all last year. That one, it just kind of seemed like a guy that you wanted around in your program, but if he wants, I get it from his standpoint too. You want to go play and have that opportunity. So I get him doing what he did. Yeah, the rest of the guys, a lot of them are too early to tell. And then the walk-ons, I mean, that's just unfortunate how that all happened. Right.
Yeah.
Anthony Jones too, I know.
That's what I was about to mention. Yeah, 2 sacks last year.
Right. I actually thought he played really good against Michigan, even with whatever.
Even the end of the game again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really blame that on him. All of that, but yeah, he's good too. I don't know. Michigan State was his third school in 30 years, and he hasn't really like. I don't know. Like I'm just. I don't want to like characterize him like too much or anything like that, but hasn't really stuck it out anywhere. You know, I feel like
he's not really hitting the panic button about anything.
And not from here. He's a guy that he's decent player, and he could have been. I actually thought he was going to have a pretty good year this year.
I had him as a starter as well. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he can be replaced though too.
So now with Isaac Smith, Anu Lafele, and David Santiago, who do you have as when it actually comes time to put the pads on in August? Who do you think is going to be the one trotting out with their first career MSU start, or do you think that portal action could mean that it's none of them and it's somebody else?
Yeah, I think who are the three again?
Anu Lafele, the Wisconsin transfer.
Right.
David Santiago from Air Force, and Isaac Smith from Texas Tech.
Yeah, I don't know if any of those guys start on. Honestly, I wouldn't bet on any of them starting, I guess.
Really?
Well, maybe. I mean, I think they all could, I guess, but I don't know. I'm trying to think who else is in that room.
Other than the room right now, I believe right now it's just walk-ons, Stone Chaney, Tyler Gillison. He missed all of last year with injury.
Right.
And then walk-on Stone Chaney and Luke DeJager.
Okay, well, yeah, then I guess one of them probably will start. I haven't really looked at it that closely, but yeah, the kid from Texas Tech, probably Isaac Smith, even though he's late edition, he put up some solid numbers. No, I don't think he started at Texas Tech, but he put up solid numbers. Yeah, that'd be my bet, I guess.
That would be your guess right now?
Yeah. Especially the fact that they, kind of prioritized him in the spring, probably means that they like him.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Wasn't there another? No, I guess that was it for edges.
There's also Jack Yomanescu? Yeah, I can't pronounce it. That pronunciation guide when it comes out in August for the first game of the year. That's going to be a lifeline for me.
Well, I guess my last one that I really had. You were talking about star rankings and class rankings and stuff a little bit ago with the 4 stars. I know right now for 2026, we're still early on. There's going to be some recalculations and stuff still to go. The Spartans sit at 4 commits currently, and I think both On3 and 24/7, the only industry 4-star, composite 4 stars, Cade Kaufman. I think Eddie Whiting's close in both. I feel like he's right there about getting the composite 4-star.
Yeah, that's another thing too, just with tight ends, and they always, I feel like, get misranked, I guess. But
yeah, he's right there. I think 24/7 composite has him like 87.5 overall, and On3 I think is fairly close to right around there. So he should be getting that bump at some point. But do you see maybe the other two? I know you said tight ends are kind of rough, with Caudell being one of the other commits with how they're evaluated, but do you think Bickle maybe has a chance at hitting that 4th star at some point? I know he was a pretty decently touted offensive lineman.
Yeah, I don't know what he's ranked right now. I don't know. He doesn't go to a lot of camps or anything like that, so I doubt it. I feel like offensive linemen, especially with those camps and stuff, that's how a lot of them get those high rankings. So yeah, I doubt he will. I don't think he cares either, but you never know either. I mean, Derek Simmons was the same way, and then he ended up blowing up.
Yeah. On3 Industries got him 85.5, and 24/7's got him. Sorry, I just had it 86. So yeah, that's a little bit of a ways, but yeah, that's really I had. I'm kind of on the same boat. I would like to see some more. You're getting to the point, especially with the way the seasons have gone and the way the recruiting momentum's gone. As a fan, you want to see Jonathan Smith and staff start to land some splashes and at least some names to sit there and say, okay, we're trending in the right direction, but. Like you said, too, from an on-field standpoint, you're going to have to start converting the talent at some point. So,
right.
Hopefully we can start landing those bigger names to hopefully translate onto the field. But I have one more question, but I'll save it for the very end for you because it's not necessarily football related. But Emmett, you got anything else?
Just one last thing I have is, in addition to seeing quite a bit of action in the portal, the Spartans are returning a lot of talent who missed most of last year with injury. From Malik Spencer missing the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Michael Masunas at tight end. You have Christian Phillips. You have Gavin Brocious.
Right.
Cole Dellinger, Tyler Gillison. It feels like you name a position group and there's a player who missed a lot of time. Khalil Majid at defensive backs. How much do you Chance Rucker at defensive backs too? Yeah. How much do you think that's going to help? How much do you think that's going to help the Spartans for next season? Do you think, for example, in a perfect world where all those guys are healthy, do you think that flips any games from, say, 2024?
Yeah, I think they probably would have won the national championship.
I like the confidence.
But I mean, you could definitely tell like that Rutgers game, it was just like so. Rutgers was not. They were not bad at all. They were actually pretty good team. Like that was just one of those games where I don't remember what the final score was. Like
41-14 or something.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever. You could just see it. Like they got wore down in the second half. Pretty much every single game. The Michigan game as well. I don't, it's hard to say if would have changed, a couple guys staying healthy would have changed that. But, obviously.
How much do you think that impacts 2025 having those guys healthy? As of right now, obviously, knock on wood, having that much talent back.
Right.
How much do you think that helps?
Yeah, it should help. Chance Rucker being back, I think, is huge. And then, you got Joshua Eaton, who I think is going to be really, really good. But yeah, and then staying healthy too. Obviously injuries are going to happen, but like the whole season-ending injuries, like those are rough, especially when it's week 1, week 2, week 3 to guys that are starters too. Dylan Tatum. Well, Tatum didn't start, but he was right there, and then Chance Rucker, and then Brocious and Big Dooley.
Brocious and Phillips, Majid, Masunas, all these at least starter adapts, yeah.
Right. So Masunas would have helped a lot, I think.
I think he's one of our best blocking tight ends, at least from the limited action I observed.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. I think he's good. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely would be nice if they could avoid, those season-ending injuries like that for the most part.
Even in the doomsday scenario, do you think that this team is built with more depth than last season's, where they could survive having, 6, 7 defensive backs out?
I think that they're probably better suited this year. I would hope so. I mean, that's kind of the point.
They went through it once, so yeah.
Right. I feel like that's kind of the point to constantly, I know you lose certain years, not, you lose your guys or whatever, supposed to constantly be building that depth, especially for like a new coaching staff, like year 2, you should start to see some of that depth more so than last year. It was like, and I actually thought last year they did a really good job too in the spring portal with their additions. Obviously, it hurt like losing Harmon and
Barrow as well.
Barrow, yeah. But yeah, I thought they did a really good job in the spring portal of not like last year they weren't really going for like those guys that were like quick fixes, so to say. 1 year of eligibility, but he's an absolute stud. Or you get a guy to come in here that has all 4 years or 3 years of eligibility that you can kind of develop. And I think you saw that last year with some of those guys pan out, that way. But over time, you'll start to see how, that was kind of laying the foundation is what I think. But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. And it's tough to watch that type of development. And you think long term that's the way you should build it, but then you see like Coach Sig at Indiana turn everything around in 1 year and put them in a playoff, and you're like, of course. But
you ask what if, yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll see how we'll see. I guess how Indiana.
We'll Google them at the end of the year. We'll put it that way. We can Google them at the end of the year.
Yeah, the next year or two with Indiana is going to prove probably why that strategy isn't the best, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think he'll have a rough couple years, but I think he'll be competitive enough. And I think he's one of those coaches that will have just like that rant. I don't even know how old he is, but every like 3 years, he'll just have like that random like 10, 11 win season. And then the rest of his seasons are six wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. we play. What was it? What did they say? I can't remember. There was one coach that used to be famous. It might have been Brian Kelly. You play that you play for one cycle in one class every 4 years or so to really take your chance at going far and maybe make it a college football playoff or a national championship. But
yeah,
hey, Mel Tucker's second in the college football playoff, and in the terms of the 12-team era, Mel Tucker's team would have made it in his second season.
Yep. So,
Okay, 9 years.
You know.
Well,
yeah, a lot of that, probably goes around like your prize quarterback, so to say, as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of quarterback dependent. That's for sure. Well, Kenny, we appreciate you joining us. We've kept you longer than we probably intended, but we appreciate it. One last question: on a scale of 1 to 10, how pumped are you for MSU hockey next year? 1,000.
Yeah, but I like football season though too.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for football and basketball, of course, but I hope we can strive to get to one day to have an off season like MSU hockey had, but for football, I don't even know what that would look like.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, everybody's talking about who is and who isn't SD for L, and then you got Isaac Howard like winning, basically being the best player in the entire sport and wanting to come back for another year.
I don't need to go pro. I can come back for one more. Yeah.
For real.
But, I mean, like you said, if they would have won it, who knows, but it doesn't sound very good with what Tampa's got going on down there either.
Yeah, they kind of fumbled not to throw more football terms in, but they kind of fumbled that, and I can only hope the Wings maybe try to take advantage of that as a selfish Red Wings fan here.
Got to do something.
So, well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming on. Like always, I'll of course link all your socials in the pod stuff. Anything yourself you want to promote, or anything you want the people to look out for? Yeah,
probably just some of the. I know Emmett does a good job too with some of his stuff, but yeah, just the. I feel like right now it's like people don't really know what's obviously you got the transfer portal, but like it's kind of like that in between time. But then you got official visits really start. Like I know they've had a few guys on campus or whatever, but those really get going beginning of June, and end of May, beginning of June. So that's really about what to look out for, and then just like I guess recruiting stuff in general. Yep. So. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. We always appreciate the inside scoop, and everybody make sure you go follow Kenny and on all of his socials and keep up to date with all of his stuff for On3 because he does a great job over there. So yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having us on. We'll end it here. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and like always, go green. Bye.